Ladies and gentlemen, in this RedGamingTech.com video we have news that Don Mattrick is going to be leaving Microsoft's Xbox division and is going to be taking over a position at Zynga. The idea is that the founder of that company, Zynga, Mark Pincus, will be taking more focus on the product development rather than the actual running of the company. And so many people are likely going to be asking, why has Don decided to leave the Xbox division? Is it under pressure? I mean, some people may be looking at this and saying, well, he's made a lot of unpopular decisions such as DRM and so forth under the Xbox rule. Is it because of that? Or is it simply because of a change of pace? Is it that he simply wants to do something differently? Now obviously the Xbox One was unveiled on the 21st of May, and since it was unveiled, well, Microsoft have been getting hit on the head with a club pretty much every other week. I don't think there's been one week where someone hasn't complained about something they've done, and okay, some of it is with merit, but other times I think, to be honest, it just became the cool thing to do. And it got to the point where people have complained on the price, the games lineup, the focus on too much on television, the DRM, always online requirements, even down to stuff such as, oh, I don't know, the size of the console. And obviously Microsoft themselves haven't really enjoyed this stuff. Now, as I said, I'm not saying that Microsoft didn't bring some of this on themselves. They definitely did. But a lot of this, a lot of the blame, shall we say, has definitely fallen on Mattrick's own shoulders. So is it a case of Mattrick has decided for the good of Microsoft, or Microsoft have pressured him out, or what? Well, to be honest with you, think about it. He's been in the company, Microsoft of course, running the Xbox division for about 6 years. That's a long time. And when you start working in a place for about 6 years, especially when you're basically the head of it, you probably get to the point where you feel a little bit restless. So there's always the good possibility that Mattrick has just decided, you know what, enough is enough. I've taken my hits on this whole Microsoft thing and I want to move on to something else. By the way, guys, I'm sorry if I sound a little bit snuffly. I've still got my cold. It's slowly going down, but yeah. Anyway, when you think about it, however, exactly how the Xbox One, in terms of its launch and so on, plays out is still unknown. Now, as far as we actually understand it, he doesn't actually have a successor named right now. Obviously, they're probably talking about this internally. So, there's one of two ways to interpret this. One, he basically stayed there because obviously he knew all of the project, he knew about the hardware, he knew about the software, he knew about their design, their goals, their vision for the hardware, and so he agreed. It was in his contract when he said, you know what, I want to leave for X. He said, you know what, I realise you guys need me, I'll stick around until the end of this, and then I'll start handing the reins over to someone else. Another possibility is that, yes, he had the position in mind already, but then Microsoft just noticed that they kept on getting hit over the head, as I said earlier, and they just basically said, you know what, you might as well leave now so we can put a fresh face on the Xbox. So, just which one it is, of course, is down to your own interpretation. It's also worth noting that in terms of business, he actually bought in very good numbers for the Xbox, and without a question, the Xbox Live, for example, has become a really big deal. It's got about 50 million users today, which is a lot more than when he originally took over back in 2007, which was just a couple of million. So you can see that, yes, he has made certain strides that, well, definitely were the right direction for Microsoft. However, many people also said that Don himself didn't really have a connection to gamers, and one of the things he did was the new Xbox experience thing, and a lot of the focus on media itself. That's not to say, of course, that people don't want to stream movies or whatever on their Xbox. Some people do, and it is a popular function. However, the problem is that many will also attest that Microsoft focused far too heavily on it, especially in later years. And the Xbox One's announcement back in May, of course, was heavily clouded by this stuff. Now, of course, Microsoft themselves have had pretty good IP. You've of course got Halo, you've of course got Forza, you've of course got Gears of War, and other titles, of course, are fairly synonymous with Xbox as well, such as Fable. But honestly speaking, many would also agree that there wasn't that many new IPs coming out. And also, some of the, how can we put it, decisions, such as the rather ridiculous hoops that third-party, or should I say indie developers had to jump through to be able to publish their games, needing to pay to update your titles. All of these various bits and pieces were very unpopular decisions. He also, of course, is pretty infamous with pissing off everyone when he manages to speak. One of them, of course, is Xbox One's internet requirement. Well, back in the day, of course, when it actually required. And what do you say if someone says to you, well, I've got crap internet. What can I do? I want to buy an Xbox One. I want to play Microsoft games, but I'm worried because I've got an Xbox, I've got crappy internet. What do? Well, do you A, say, well, I'm sorry about that. We're going to try our absolute best to ensure that it's not impacted. Do you say B? Do you try to reassure them that don't worry, the Xbox One doesn't require that much of a good internet connection. As long as you can get online for just a couple of minutes a day, you'll be fine. Do you C? Tell them that in the future it may be possible that, you'll work on something a little bit different, and, maybe for certain people, say in the military or so forth, you'll release special updates to allow them to play? Or do you D, tell them that there's always a product out there for that? Don't worry, good sir. It's called the Xbox 360, so you go ahead and buy the old generation technology, because obviously you don't want the next generation console or anything. After all, you've got crappy internet, so why would you be interested in next generation games? It doesn't make sense, right? And comments like that, of course, were pretty infamous, and Microsoft themselves, I mean, I can just imagine Bill Gates just smacking his head against the desk, because I'm not a marketing person, I know bits about marketing, of course, but I'm not what you consider a CEO of a company or a marketing expert or whatever. And when I read that, when I heard those comments, I actually even posted on redgamingtech.com Facebook at the time, and I was just shocked. It's almost like the equivalent of you saying to someone, well, you know what, our competitors definitely offer a next generation product that does that. It just doesn't make sense to say stuff like that. I thought to myself at the time, my goodness, the man is a menace. He shouldn't be speaking. He should just keep quiet in the corner and just nod along. And indeed, he's managed to do other things as well to piss people off. One of the big ones, is he managed to alienate Bungie themselves. And this happened during withholding the Halo 3 ODST from E3 way back when. And let's face it as well, there have been other instances as well. Kinect. So even me just saying that 3 or 4 times in a row, and you just like, why do I keep saying it? And incidentally, that's pretty much how everyone was thinking about Don as well, when he kept on telling us about how this new Kinect revolutionary technology for the Xbox. And okay, that's cool, but then he started to talk about it heavily for the Xbox One also. And the problem is, of course, that he even said the price of the Xbox One was fair. It was a very good price because it included the Kinect. But so many different industry analysts, so many different games journalists have taken him apart because they've consistently said, well, we don't want it. It's as simple as that. We do not care about Kinect games. And Sony themselves have actually gone on record and said that one of the reasons that they didn't include the PlayStation 4i was simple. It increases the cost of the console. Simple as that, black and white answer. And they said, look, if you want to give us $60, whatever that's going to cost in the UK or wherever the heck you're from, for the PlayStation Eye, and developers want to support the PlayStation Eye, great, more power to you, Skip. On the other hand, for those of you who don't give a rat's ass about the PlayStation Eye, if those aren't your type of games, well, we understand that, and we're not going to force you to buy this peripheral. Lionhead, for example, who Microsoft bought out, they acquired them, which wasn't exactly cheap, it wasn't like it was free, and obviously that was from a different leadership and all, but still. They worked on titles for Kinect, but, well, one of them was just a disaster. It wasn't exactly popular. The other one, well, I don't see it on the shelves, do you? And there was only a couple of titles that actually were really popular on the Kinect. So, the question became, did anyone actually want to develop for it? Many would argue that one of the absolute best qualities of the Xbox, or at least when I first got the system, was the Xbox Live indie and arcade games. And as I mentioned earlier, developers themselves, indie developers, have consistently mentioned just how awkward Microsoft were. The whole, you require a publisher to be able to publish your games, even if you are capable of self-publishing, it doesn't matter, you need someone else to help you. That just pissed people off. And, of course, Mattrick himself spearheaded a lot of these ideas. Or, at the very least, he didn't change them. Now, I remember when I very first saw the Xbox 360 reveal back in the day, and there was a man who revealed it by the name of J. Allard, or James Allard if you prefer for his full name, and when he revealed the system, there were a couple of things that were just... How could I put this? They were just obvious. The first was that his passion for the system. He continuously waxed lyrically about just how he believed the games themselves would be able to rival or mix in with other media, such as, say, films and the artistic development and direction and everything else. And, okay, of course, he made the odd decision wrong, but it was primarily games. And he believed that, yes, other stuff would be cool, other stuff would be nice, but the real focus when he developed the system, when the system was on the drawing board, were a simple little thing known as video games. And so, of course, the Xbox One was developed under Mattrick's rule rather than Allard's, and I have to say, I think things would have been extremely different if Allard himself had taken over the role of the system. If he were the one who was actually designing it, I think it would have been a lot cooler. Of course, Allard himself is retired now, no longer working for Microsoft, and now we have, or did have, Mattrick. And I think his focus on other things from games is just become evident. I'm hoping that someone else will take over. Now, I actually watched a recent interview with Mark Cerny, and Mark Cerny, of course, is the lead architect at Sony. Now, obviously, he was making things great for Sony because obviously that's who he works for, that's who he's representing, blah blah blah. But even so, one thing is obvious. He has a passion, a love for games, and I've always said that when you buy a console, I don't care what console it is, I don't care if it's Microsoft's, Sony's, Nintendo, or even a PC, you should actually think to yourself, is this company building a system that I'm going to like and I'm going to want to be part of? It's obvious that Don as well rushed out certain technologies such as Kinect. There weren't many games available for it at launch, and to be honest with you, there wasn't really a need to rush it out. I mean, sure, everyone was jumping on the Nintendo bandwagon, but even so, take your time, release the thing when it's bloody ready, when there's enough software. And obviously his rush probably hurt a lot of people, including, of course, developers who sunk their time into it, gamers who actually bought it because it wasn't sensitive or accurate enough and probably could have done with a bit more time in development, and everything else. So what does that mean for Microsoft? Does that mean that we're going to see, well, different things from them in the future? Well, it depends who, of course, they have taking over Mattrick's role. If they get someone taking over his role that is of the similar mindset, then obviously no. On the other hand, if you get someone who's more focused on the game side of things, in my opinion, that's a very good thing. I think there's one lesson that can be learned here really well, and that is you can clearly see how a company is driven by just one person at the top, but just how they view the technology that they are governing. And as I said, Allard, I really respected him, and I actually really loved the Xbox 360. As soon as I saw it being presented, I was like, my goodness, this is awesome. Because, of course, he was trying to sell the system to us. That's a given. That's understood. That's fine. And I actually want that, because if you just have someone that's like, this system will play games and they will look better. Who gives a shit? You want someone to try and sell you that system who sounds enthusiastic, who knows what they're talking about, because that gets you riled up. That means that you want to buy that system. You know that that system is going to have good life in it, and so forth and so on. But I never felt like that when Don was speaking. I always felt to myself that he felt uncomfortable almost. Like, he wasn't really sure what he was talking about sometimes in terms of the games. He wouldn't really be hands-on with them. And a lot of the comments he made, you could just tell that there was doubt there, that he just didn't really understand the gaming industry maybe as much as he should have. Because if you do, you don't recommend or suggest someone buy an Xbox 360 rather than a Xbox One, without at least trying to. Because what gamer, who here who is a gamer would actually take that advice seriously? It just, there's one of three ways you can take that advice, right? Let's just be neutral about it. It's one of three ways. One, he's trolling, in other words, he's taking the piss. Two, he's actually being really serious and actually believes that he is giving the very best advice possible. Or three, he just didn't know what else to say. He was caught unawares, and so he just came up with an answer on the fly. It was crap, but that was the best he could do at the time. No matter which of those three it was, it's unacceptable. I know I keep on harking on about this because, to me, it's a really fundamental point. Does that mean that Mattrick himself did absolutely nothing right for the company? No. He definitely did do some stuff right. He improved the Xbox Live service. He did introduce these various services as well, such as streaming and so forth, to a much greater degree, which is fine. I don't think anyone actually cared about that in terms of they didn't want to see it on the console. I think people just didn't want it to be focused upon as an equal to games anyway, at least in my opinion. And finally speaking, he did help bring in higher sales numbers and so forth as well. So those are all good things. The problem is you need something else, and well, I do wish the man luck for his next endeavours, and I do mean that sincerely, because it's not like he's not smart, it's not like he's not capable. I just don't think that he maybe felt that games were really his cup of tea, and if that's the case and that's why he left, then fantastic. Maybe he just thought to himself, you know what, I want to do something a bit different here. Anyway, regardless, people are going to be talking about this one for a while, I think, especially because of the timing is a bit convenient. Regardless, I'm going to get going. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. I will see you soon. Take care and bye for now.